Hello, and welcome to my What the F podcast. I'm Tina, your IVF mindset and fertility coach and mum of a miracle boy after 4 years of IVF treatment. If you're in the IVF trenches or going through the loneliness, soul-destroying and tears of infertility, then you're in the right place. You are not alone in this. I'm here to help you be kinder to yourself, even in the toughest moments when you feel so frustrated and overwhelmed and feel like giving up. Together, we will help you to find happiness and peace during one of the toughest chapters of your life. And if there is just one thing that you take away from this podcast and work on, then my heart is already full. Hey lovely, and welcome back to What the F, from Infertility Exhaustion to Peace. I'm Tina, and today's episode is for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the fear and uncertainty that comes with infertility and IVF treatment. And let's face it, most of us really do feel the fear and the uncertainty, which at times can be crippling. Honestly, I know how much fear can grip you during this process. The fear of failure, the fear of never becoming a mother, the fear of what the future might look like for you, or even the fear of the next cycle or transfer not working out. It's bloody scary and can leave you feeling emotionally drained, disconnected from your body, and maybe even unsure about how to keep moving forward, leaving you feeling constantly stuck. But the thing is, fear doesn't have to control your journey, doesn't have to control you. Yes, it's completely normal to be afraid. We're all afraid on this journey, but we can manage it. We'll also talk about an incredibly powerful NLP tool. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. That's helped me and my clients reframe negative and unhelpful thoughts so that you and my clients can regain emotional balance. We'll also talk about an incredibly powerful tool, NLP tool, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, that's helped me and my clients reframe negative and unhelpful thoughts and regain emotional balance. Okay, let's talk about fear that can feel like it's holding you hostage during IVF treatment or other fertility treatment. When you're going through treatments, there's so much uncertainty, it's insane. The endless what ifs can easily spiral into anxiety. You start to think, what if this doesn't work? What if I never get pregnant? What if I'm not good enough? What if my body's not good enough? And this is the number one thing that all my clients talk about and find super stressful and anxiety inducing. I'm going to be really honest with you. When I was in the thick of treatment, of IVF journey, those thoughts ran through my head. The fear of failure was like a shadow that followed me around and I couldn't get rid of it. I remember sitting in the waiting room for yet another test result, wondering if the cycle would be the one or if I was about to face more disappointment and heartache. But here's what I discovered during my NLP and coaching training, which I did, by the way, at the same time as my IVF treatment. I know, completely crazy. But anyway, what I discovered was that fear doesn't have to define your journey, and it didn't have to define me. The more you feed into it, the more it controls you. And I know it's tough, it's super tough, and it feels like more work to do when you already have enough on your plate. But you can choose to shift your perspective and do something about it. One of the biggest tools that's helped me and something that I use with my clients is the NLP technique called Reframing. It's a simple but really powerful tool that allows you to change your perspective on a situation, especially one that feels negative, heavy, or overwhelming, and one that you know you don't want to keep thinking or feeling because it's not helping you and it's not serving you in the right way. Here's how reframing works. When you experience fear or anxiety, Instead of letting it consume you completely, pause and ask yourself, what's another way I can look at this situation? Instead of thinking, what if this doesn't work? Try thinking, what if this is a step towards what I truly want, no matter what the outcome? Shift your mindset from fear to curiosity. Instead of being afraid of the unknown all the time, see it as an opportunity for growth, learning, and for building resilience. It might seem small, but honestly, reframing is a game changer. It also allows you to remove yourself, detach yourself from fear, and reframe the story that you're telling yourself. Because honestly, that's what we're so good at doing on the fertility journey, is telling ourselves so many different stories, sometimes like hundreds a day. And you know what I'm talking about because I was there too. But these stories we tell ourselves are just stories at the end of the day and aren't true. They're simply not true and they're not reality. So I want to tell you about one of my clients, Rebecca. I've changed her name for privacy. So when Rebecca first came to me, she was completely all over the place and overwhelmed by fear. But her fears weren't just about her fertility journey. They went way beyond that. Yes, she had tons of fear every time she faced another failed cycle, failed transfer, and she felt like it was the end of her journey, like she was completely out of options. But she also had fears around the health of her aging parents, her relationship with her husband, and feared that it would break down from her not being able to let go of the fact that she wanted a sibling for her daughter. She wanted another baby. Fear for her career that she had worked so hard to build up over the years and years of sheer hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. The fear was so strong that it started to cloud every decision that she was making, and she started to worry about things that hadn't even happened yet. And we all do it sometimes. But for her, it felt like she was doing it all the time, like every day. To stop the cycle of fear of just about everything and anything, we worked together on reframing her thoughts, one thought at a time. So, for example, instead of focusing on failure, we shifted her focus to growth that she was experiencing. After each cycle, Rebecca started to ask herself, what have I learned about myself? How have I grown? What strengths have I discovered about myself? What can I do to control what I am scared of, what I am fearful of? And what is out of my control of what I'm scared of? This reframing wasn't instant. I'm not going to promise you that it happens overnight. But slowly she began to see that failure wasn't a reflection of her self-worth. It was part of the process, a natural part of her journey. And with this shift in her mindset, Rebecca started to feel so much more empowered, less anxious, and more hopeful about the future. Reframing isn't just about thoughts and changing a perspective and shifting what you think on a daily basis. There is real neuroscience behind it. And I know I do talk a lot about neuroscience because I have an honours degree in it. So for me, it's not just a buzzword that people are just throwing into the mix. In fact, my entire thesis was based on neurogenesis, which is a bit like neuroplasticity. And I'll explain a bit more about that to give you some context without boring you to death. So neuroplasticity is basically the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And so when we experience negative emotions or stress, our brain forms neural pathways that reinforce those feelings. So essentially creating a cycle of negativity. For example, when we think about infertility or a failed IVF cycle, our brain may form a habitual pattern of fear and helplessness. And then we feel stuck in this pattern and it loops around our minds constantly. Reframing works by intentionally and consciously creating new neural pathways. So when we choose to shift our perception of a situation from negative to positive, we are essentially rewiring our brain. And this new way of thinking activates different areas of the brain that are associated with hope, with resilience, and problem solving. And that helps to override the negative pathways that we've already created. So, have you ever thought about how you, myself, so many women can keep going after multiple failed cycles, egg retrievals, transfers? Like, I personally had 3 IVF cycles that left me with 0 embryos, and 3 frozen embryo transfers that didn't work. But I kept going. And here is the reason why. So when we reframe and we do it consciously, and we do it often, and we do it consistently, we change our emotional response to a situation, often leading to more positive feelings such as hope, optimism, and resilience. And this triggers the brain's dopamine system, which some of us know is the reward center. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with the feelings of pleasure, motivation, and reward. When you reframe your thoughts and start focusing on the positive aspects of a situation, even during, the toughest times like IVF struggles, your brain starts releasing dopamine, which can boost your mood and motivation. And so over time, this can reinforce more positive thinking patterns, making it easier to cope with the future challenges and ups and downs and roadblocks, on your fertility journey. So, for example, after a failed IVF cycle, a reframing might help you feel hopeful for the next one versus feeling defeated and let down, triggering a dopamine release that encourages you to keep going. It boosts your motivation and helps you to stay positive, even in the face of adversity. And honestly, I'm not saying it doesn't mean that you can't feel the grief or the pain and feel let down and heartbroken of a failed cycle and everything that goes with it. But it means that you have the ability to be able to pick yourself back up when ready and keep going if that's what you want to do. Reframing can also be broken down into 2 key steps from a neuroscience perspective. So the first one is around awareness. So the first step is recognizing the negative thought or emotion when it comes to you, when it pops into your brain like it does. For instance, if you're thinking IVF treatment is never going to work for me, it'll work, it's going to work for everyone else, just not me. Become aware of this thought and acknowledge it without judgment on yourself. And the second step is reinterpretation. So the next step is to reframe thought in a way that empowers you and stimulates these positive neural pathways I was talking about earlier. So you could reframe this thought into something like, I'm in control of my thoughts and response, and every cycle brings me closer to my goal. I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm adapting along the way. Or whatever works for you. It's a very personal choice. Now, this process, these 2 steps that I talked about, the awareness and the reinterpretation, this process activates your prefrontal cortex in your brain and helps you to reprogram the habitual negative responses you may have developed during your fertility journey or other chapters of your life, right? This doesn't just sometimes happen when you're going through fertility or infertility. It's something that can be programmed into you when you were younger. This tool, this reframing, isn't just for your fertility journey. They are tools for life. So that's kind of enough of the geeky science bit. I want to now take you through a reframing process. So this is for a time that you have when you have some space, some quiet time for you to grab your journal or your phone, and I will walk you through how to do this. Okay, so how can you reframe fear or your fears? Because fear looks different for everyone, right? My fear looks different from someone else's fear. I always say identify. So the number one step, so step number one is identify the fear that you're feeling. And it might be about a specific part of the IVF process or journey. So whether it's the waiting, the tests, or the possibility of failure. And ask yourself. So number two, ask yourself. So once you've identified the fear, number two, ask yourself, what am I focusing on right now? Is there another way to see the situation? And number three is to then, now we start to reframe your thought, the thought that you're having. So instead of thinking, if you're thinking, what if this doesn't work? Try reframing it into, what if this is one step closer to the family that I want, the baby that I want, the life that I want? What if this cycle brings me the learnings I need to succeed next time? And the third step is to reframe your thought. So instead of thinking, what if this doesn't work? Try reframing it into, what if this is one step closer to the family that I want, the baby that I want? What if this cycle brings me the learnings I need to succeed next time? And step number four is write down your reframed thought and repeat it to yourself as often as you need. Reframing is all about creating a new story, one that moves you away from fear, anxiety, or unhelpful patterns towards one that empower you. By shifting your focus, you take back control of your mindset, emotional well-being, and mental well-being. Now, mindset is talked about a lot. Like, I see it everywhere. Like, everyone has suddenly become a mindset coach. But mindset is more than just thinking positive. It's about changing the neural pathways that influence our emotional responses and empower ourselves to take control of our fertility journey and beyond. Like, it's not just about what you're going through right now. It's about preparing yourselves for what's upcoming in the future and everything, all the other challenges that life will throw at you. And there are so many research papers and studies to verify all of this and prove the science behind it. So I'm not going to go into this into too much detail, but one particular study, a study was called The Role of Mindset in Recovery from Stress, Reframing as a Cognitive Strategy by Crum, Salovey, and Ackle, right? I'll put the details in the show notes, but they basically explored how mindset, specifically reframing in stressful situations, can influence the physiological stress response. The researchers found that people who were trained to reframe stress, so seeing it as an opportunity for growth rather than something harmful, experienced lower levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and improved emotional regulation. That's what they found. The several studies again proved that reframing is not just about changing the way you think, it has real physiological and psychological benefits. And studies have also shown that reframing through cognitive reappraisal, mindset shifts, and neuroplasticity can significantly reduce stress, improve emotional regulation, and even help individuals grow from challenging experiences such as a fertility journey. It works. It actually works. And there is science and data to prove it. Okay, so now let's talk about uncertainty and how we can overcome this. Uncertainty is a massive part of infertility and fertility treatment. We can't control the outcome of IVF, of treatment. And that can be terrifying because as human beings, we are hardwired for control. And not being able to control the outcome is scary, right? It's scary for us. But uncertainty doesn't have to create chaos. In fact, the more we try to control things, especially those things that are out of our control, the more stressed we become. And one thing that helped me, especially when uncertainty felt so overwhelming and it felt like I was drowning, was surrendering. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up. It means accepting that you don't know the future, and that's okay. Surrendering is a powerful tool because it takes the pressure off. And instead of trying to force an outcome, you allow yourself to trust your body's intuition and wisdom. It's not about giving up hope. It's about giving up control and letting go of the constant anxiety that comes when you're trying to control everything. And I know this is easier said than done, but I've got a really simple yet effective tool that can help the letting go part of it, and it's called the letting go technique. And so, like I said, surrendering doesn't mean giving up or resigning to defeat. It's about releasing the constant need for control and trusting that things are unfolding as they should. And it is really, really hard to let go when you want something so badly, so badly. But here is a small practice that can help you begin that process of surrendering. Now, for this exercise, you will need to find a quiet space, some time to yourself. So if you're listening to this on your walk or driving, then maybe it's not the best time to do it now. But yeah, come back to this episode when you've got a quiet moment and follow my instructions on what to do. So I'm going to talk you through how to, the letting go technique. And there's 6 steps essentially. And it doesn't take long, honestly. It doesn't take long at all. Okay, so first step is to find a quiet space. So sit down in a quiet space where you know you won't be disturbed or distracted. What I want you to do is close your eyes and take a few deep breaths in and out, letting your body relax with each exhale. Number 2, focus on your breath. Be aware of your breath and start to focus on it. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a moment, and then exhale slowly through your mouth. Continue this breathing pattern for 3 minutes, allowing your body to calm down. And when you breathe in and out, make sure you are deep breathing from your diaphragm. Now imagine holding onto something tightly in your hands. So whether it's the fear of the future, anxiety about the next cycle or test result, or the need for answers, see that thing that you're thinking of as a heavy weight that you've been carrying. Now I want you to picture yourself gently opening your hands and letting go of whatever you've been holding on to. Imagine it floating away, disappearing into the air, or being taken away by a stream or the wind. Let go of the need for control over the outcome. As you release that weight, say this affirmation quietly to yourself. I trust that the right path will unfold for me. and I am at peace with the process. Now I want you to come back to the center. Take a few more deep breaths in and out. And when you're ready, gently bring yourself back to the present moment, knowing that you don't have to carry all the weight of the journey alone and all the time. Why this technique works. This technique works because it allows you to release the fear and the anxiety and everything else that comes with the need for control. By letting go, surrendering, you make room, you invite in trust, peace, and acceptance, which can massively reduce your mental load and your emotional stress. And I'll say it again, remember, surrendering isn't about giving up. It's about choosing peace, even when everything around you feels uncertain. Every time you practice this, you're training your body and your mind to release tension and accept the flow of life as it comes. You're allowing yourself to feel lighter and more empowered. So yeah, give this a go, give this exercise a go, and try doing it several times in a week if you need to, and see how you feel. I'd love to hear from you once you've tried it. If you've got any feedback, if you've got any observations in how you're feeling and how maybe lighter you're feeling, so please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you that fear and uncertainty are natural emotions on this journey, and you are not alone in feeling them. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed. But remember that you do not have to let fear control you. By practicing mindfulness, reframing your thoughts, and learning to surrender, you can face the fear and uncertainty of IVF with a renewed sense of hope, peace, and empowerment. If today's episode helped you shift your mindset, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs this reminder and this virtual hug. And also, I'd love to hear from you if you've tried the exercise, the letting go technique, and how it went for you. And remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you are strong. Even though you might not want to be, you are resilient and you are incredible. Take care of yourself, be gentle, be kind, and believe in the strength that's already within you. I believe in you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode brought you some peace, perspective, and a reminder that you're not alone on this journey. If you found today's conversation helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps others to find the safe space, and I'm so grateful for that. And if you're ready to take the next step in your fertility journey, get in touch with me. I'm here to help, guide, and support you through this process. So whether you need help shifting your mindset or just someone to listen, I'm with you every step of the way. I want you to remember that your fertility journey is uniquely yours, and that is enough. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be gentle, and trust that you are incredible. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, and every step you take is a step forward towards your healing and towards your growth. Sending you love, strength, and all the support you need. Until next time.